Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of The Gibson Show. And today I am joined by one of my favorite players, coaches, analysts, whatever Laxing wants to go by these days. Laxing, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm just the whole 9 yards at this point.
Yeah, but sure, look, you got to keep the toolbox full of all those skills, because this career in esports, for a lot of people, it ain't a long one, but you've kind of defied the odds so far.
Yeah, 7.5 years, and I think it could have been longer. I was kind of forced into a retirement that I wasn't expected, so that definitely could have been going longer. But my plan is to return to play at some point.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people want you back as well. You are one of the biggest names in Siege. As you like to point out, you've had so much success, and some of the people that you've had success with have been on the show before. I've spoken to a couple of your ex-teammates at this point. Had a nice talk with Foxy, talked with Skies as well. You teamed up with them. So it'd be cool to kind of get your side of the story about your career so far. But I think with every story, it's always good to start at the start. We'll not skip too far forward. Obviously, for most people who get into pro gaming, there's a kind of a point when they get into a game where they're kind of like, yeah, I'm better than most of the people I play at this, and I definitely want to try and play at a competitive level. So going back to when you started your career, at what point did you kind of decide that you wanted to move into competitive play?
Probably around the time Halo 3 was a thing, playing back on the Xbox. I had a family friend that was very competitive, and I'd go over to his place and kind of like watch him and his brother play. They had like sponsors at the time, so like it was cool to see them. Even then, like salaries weren't a thing. You weren't making money. It wasn't a living. It was more of like a hobby, turned professional, but still like the benefits of it weren't really, anything crazy at the time. But like that was something. And I always grew up playing video games. Both sides of my family has tons of video game history. And it was then something where I was like, that's something I wanted to do. And so Halo kind of really started the competitive side in me. And then it kind of went into Call of Duty. And when I knew I could go pro, was every time I was playing any FPS game, I was always doing extremely well. Even if it was my first time playing it, picking it up, I was always doing extremely well. Sure, it took me, a couple of days to like really excel in gameplay, but outside of that, like I just was hitting every single point and angle I possibly could hit to be a good player. And then I had friends, going through high school that we would play, GBs, which is called game battles. If some people aren't aware, or if you're not aware, it's this online tournament provider that you could sign up with a team and verse other teams outside of just playing ranked, the standard matchmaking stuff. So I was doing that pretty aggressively for all types of games. I was doing it for Overwatch, I was doing it for Siege, I was doing it for Halo. Well, Halo is PGL. I was doing it for Call of Duty. So like my competitive drive came from Halo, kind of manifested throughout the years, and then Siege came out, and from there I actually just loved Siege. But the funny story about Siege is, so Overwatch originally said that they were going to have an Overwatch League for console as well. And so I grinded Overwatch hard, and Redeemer, my former coach, we were actually like the top one players, the top 1%. I was the number one Genji in the world. I think he was like the number one Lucio. And we had this team, and we were getting ready. They canceled the scene, and then I went to Rainbow Six, and Rainbow Six just felt so refreshing and brand new. And at the time, there wasn't even a pro scene, but there was GBs, like I said, game battles, and like I was just grinding that nonstop.
But the thing is, too, when you get into Siege, you kind of realize very quickly that just being good at aiming, just being good with your placement of your aim isn't enough. There's a lot more to that type of strategy game. I know a lot of people compared it back in the day to Search and Destroy and some of the other games, but Siege kind of had more of that suspense. Did you kind of have that natural knack of game sense in Siege from the start, like some people are starting to do now, or did you find it completely different to everything you played when you stepped in?
No, actually, and again, this is going to go back to when my first competitive like nature started. Is Halo, I think, truthfully molded me into the player that I am today. I don't want to give full credit to Halo, but Halo at the time, during those games when it was Call of Duty, Halo, like those are the main games. Like Halo, in my opinion, was one of like the highest skill gap games. You were on an even playing field. You had the same weapons. Your positioning was important. Like everything, like really, you know, you had to know when to be aggressive. You had to know when to be passive. And Halo like really molded that. So going into other FPS games, then, you know, it was just adding whatever I needed to add to adapt to those games. So going into Siege, I played Battlefield, I played Call of Duty. So it was like a mixture of that. Obviously Search and Destroy sort of esque play. So I was already familiar with like playing for my life, eliminating the other team, trying to outsmart the other opponent, and just even for my play style in general, I've never been a flashy aim person. I've never cared to be, you know, this mechanically gifted player. I like to play games like playing chess. You know, I want my enemies to be playing checkers while I'm playing chess. Like I like to be well thought out, mapped out, and more methodical with my play style and outplaying someone versus just out aiming.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like you got to grow up playing Halo. On my side of things, I live in rural Ireland, so I didn't have the internet to play competitive games. Like I think, was it Black Ops or something was when I first got to actually play some competitive games, multiplayer, other than having friends over to the house. So we'll blame that. That's why I never made a pro with it. We'll blame the Irish internet. But after that, you got into competitive Rainbow Six Siege, and you managed to win an Invitational. You joined Elevate, and I suppose at that time of your life, it's probably when your parents were starting to think, you know, is online gaming something that you can make a career out of? Was traveling with Elevate and going to win that first major tournament, was that the point that your family started backing you in competitive gaming, or did you always have that?
No, it was actually a lot sooner than that. So Excellence winning my first ever Pro League event, and going to my first ever Pro League event. I just remember when we made it through qualifiers, then we were, you know, then considered pro players because we made top 8. That's when they first were, you know, setting the grounds for a pro scene. And you had to play through this qualifier. Me and Excellent actually got picked up. So my team originally, we got there's a long story. It's a long story, but the Xbox community knows, like the tight niche group of it. But we lost out on, I think, top 12. So then I was, you know, I lost my chance. But then Excellence wanted to pick me up. So then they picked me up. And then, you know, I go to my mom. I'm like, oh, I'm a pro player. This, that. Like, I'm super excited. She didn't really care because she didn't really know, like, you know, what that came with, or, you know, in their age, like gaming wasn't, you know, anything, you know, of importance that was making you money, unless obviously you were developing games. So it was funny because I went to her, I'm super excited, and she was like, okay, you know, cool, whatever, like good for you. But when it really hit her that it was something was when we did qualify for PAX East. And then I was getting my flight, you know, I was showing her all these different invoices and everything's paid for. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to show up and play. And then obviously being on stage and it being streamed to an audience, like that's when my mom really was like, oh, this is, you know, this is something. And then almost immediately after, I'm then flying out to Poland. And then, you know, it just kept going further and further and further with each year, and me playing that, you know, I was always traveling. I was always going somewhere. Now I'm on a salary, and you know, it was very early on when my mom realized that, you know, this is actually something.
Yeah, it's crazy because I'm in my late 20s, and even now, I got my first gig to work in a studio back in October, November for, you know, Challenger League here in EU. And my dad was like, is this a scam? Are you sure you're being scammed? Are they going to pay you? Or you're not paying for this yourself? And I was like, no, it's a serious thing. But I think it is a general... It is a generational thing, though. You know, you look back, and I'm pretty sure that, you know, athletes in field sports like football or ice hockey at one point back, you know, years ago, parents were like, you know, you'll never work in that, you'll never make money in that. But lo and behold, this is
I got told that a ton.
Yeah. So I think it is a change in scene, and it's looking good for the future as well. But I want to talk then about, you won your first Invitational, and I spoke to a couple of your ex-teammates at the time. And for some of them, they said that first one on console was, you know, for them, the pinnacle of their career, even though they went on to win other Invitationals. How did that win for you feel with respect to, you know, other wins that you've had in your career?
Yeah, it was probably one of the best moments in my life and my career, to just play in front of that crowd, to win that event, and then obviously the history now behind it, like looking back at it, it was, it's the biggest event of the year. And even if it wasn't as big then, like it was still massive to me, traveling with all the traveling I was already doing, and then winning that, and then winning it in the fashion that we did, all the hype that was built around us, all the hype that we also created, because we were on Xbox versus PC and stuff like that. And it was just, it was just a surreal moment of just winning that, closing out that, and doing it in a fashion that has not been since then repeated in any single invitational.
And then after that, the whole change of the scene happened where they got rid of the console league. They went PC only. And some people really struggled. Some people never played PC gaming before, but they wanted to stay inside of the Siege scene. Did you have any background in PC gaming whatsoever before the transfer?
So like I was telling you in the beginning, like a lot of my family was very gaming oriented already, and already had history. So going over to cousin's house, other family members' house, someone always had the other console or the different game or whatever. So I wouldn't say my knowledge on the keyboard and mouse was anything crazy, but I did play a lot of top-down strategy games like Star Trek or Warcraft, and then World of Warcraft. So I had some knowledge of how to like maneuver on a keyboard and mouse. But in terms of like FPS play and all that, there wasn't a whole lot. I played Day of Defeat. I don't know if you ever played Day of Defeat. Source. Yeah. So I had like background in that, and Tribes. I don't know if some people know Tribes. So I did play games like that on PC, but again, it was like in short increments when I was visiting family. It was nothing ever consistent of like a whole week or month straight, but I was familiar with it. So the biggest shot or the biggest blow to me was just like, we won the Invitational. We're going to get ready for the next season. We're going to tackle it hard. And then all of a sudden we get this email saying we're canceling the scene. We'll buy, like, it wasn't much of like a, sorry, we're doing this to you guys. We're like ruining your career. Here, we're going to buy you a fucking PC or something like that. It was then like, if you guys make the transition, we'll give you the game for free, which in reality, it's like, PCs, and to like compete at that level, you need to be spending, $1,000, $2,000, whatever the case was. And now, you're only getting a $60 game. But it was easy for us because we were obviously making the most money at the time. We were winning events, so we had money to buy PCs. But that was just the biggest blow. It's like, you're preparing, you're an Xbox gamer, that PC, Xbox, console war stuff. And it was just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to transfer, but obviously we all did transfer. And it was a funny experience, to say the least.
But hey, you made the most of it. You've had a really good career so far since that point. You look at some of the orgs you've represented, Cloud9, you were part of that reciprocity, roster that did so well. Then you played
Logic, all that stuff.
OXG.
Yep.
So let's talk about that kind of spell you had then from 2018 up until your final days with OXG. You had a lot of success. You were at a couple of major international tournaments. Obviously, you had the whole COVID situation, which really caused a lot of problems for people on the scene. But you've been involved since basically the start, so you've seen the meta change. You've managed to keep yourself relevant, even though the game has changed so much since it's come out. Talk us through all those moves through your career, how some of those moves came up, and just kind of the highlights you've had.
Now, are you talking in terms of changing the org transitioning, or just transitioning through season after season?
Through the orgs and through the teams.
Okay. I'll talk about the orgs first. So just the transition from obviously like going from Excellence to Elevate to CLG to Beast Coast to Cloud9 to Reciprocity, OXG, all that stuff. Throughout my career, the 7.5 years, it really experienced all different orgs, whether it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. It really started to come down towards the end of not so much about tier and popularity, about the org actually caring about you and wanting to represent you. Because to me, being on a tier 1 org, and I can't speak for all tier 1 orgs, it's not like I've been on every single tier 1 org or tier 2 org, but in my experience with the ones that did have, and this is no, shot at them, but when you're on a tier 1 org, you're just another number. And it's not like Siege is a game of, like League of Legends or CSGO caliber. Like, I think it has the potential, we just got to get there. But you just become a number at that point. You aren't like the eye, you aren't the star child of the organization or the star team. You're just another team that they're fielding, and you're just playing underneath them. And there's some benefits, and then there's also some not so great
Hmm.
benefits. And then with tier 3, sometimes it can be a little rough. Things can be a little weird with payments and this and that.
Hmm.
Tier 2, it's a little mixture of in between, but all in all, what really came down to it at the end of the day for me throughout these years is if the org is willing to work with you. When you have an org that likes you, willing to work with you, it makes business a lot better, and there's a lot more opportunities to be created than organizations that are already established or up and coming orgs that don't really have a lot of status and they can't really work much with you. So finding an org that really cares about you and is willing to work with you is far more beneficial to my career than just having a status.
Hmm. I think that's
And
an interesting way of looking at it.
yeah, I mean, it's you have to go through tons of hurdles to get to that point and realize that, because I definitely was on the train of I want a tier 1 org, my life's going to be
Yeah.
made once that happens, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. I think in some situations sure, but in my situations it definitely was the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, but I think with the orgs that you've played with, though, I keep bringing it up. You have had a lot of success, and as you kind of came to the end of the OXG spell, um,
Hmm.
it kind of came as a shock to some people that they decided to move on, or to other people that wasn't. How did it come across to you? Like, did you think that at that time that you were going to get moved off the OXG roster, or were you planning for the future? Like, how did the whole thing go down for you? If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
I mean, I'll talk a little bit about it. I won't go like super in depth, but I'll
Hmm.
definitely touch up on it. I mean, I heard rumors through multiple people, so like it wasn't. I mean, personally, I shouldn't have got replaced. I am by far one of the most consistent players in Siege. I can adapt to any
Hmm.
situation. Very flexible. My work ethic speaks for itself. So, I mean, regardless of how it happened, when it happened, I truthfully, for me, and maybe some people in Siege don't see it that way, but I treat Siege as a business. Like, this
Hmm.
career is business for me. Friendships are second; they come second. And I think in some teams, friendships really matter. Which, sure, that's great and all, but at the end of the day, you are competing against your teammates, even if you are on a team,
Hmm.
because you need to, in most situations, if you're performing and you're doing really well, you're standing out compared to the rest, which then creates opportunities, or just can set you up for something better than what you currently might have. And that's
Hmm.
not to like say like hate your teammates or something like that, but at the end of the day, it is all competition. You look at it even in professional sports. That's why
Hmm.
certain players get traded or things happen, because they're outperforming or they're doing something that is obviously making them stand out. And it's, for me, like it's business. It's business at the end of the day. And I think for some reasons why I got cut is maybe because I wasn't um, so much engaged in outside activity outside of work
Hmm.
ethic. But for me, I'm 25 years old. I have a brand new purchased house. Like, I have
Hmm.
a life outside of gaming, and I'm already spending 6 days out of the week, 12 months out of the year with my teammates already. So like, I
Hmm.
definitely like my own space and I like my alone time, and living in a team house. And this isn't just directed at like OXG. It's just team houses in general, I think, are the worst thing in esports. I
Hmm.
think it's cool in concept, but when you're actually there and living with people and everyone, you can kind of see their background of how their family are and who they are and like how they are the people that they are and like the cleanliness and everything. Like, a lot of that shit just doesn't exist when you got five grown, well, not, I don't want to say grown men, I would say children
Hmm.
in a house. And like, that's exhausting. But for me, I like my own space. I know where I wanted to be at. I know I didn't want to live in a team house. That's why I have my own house. And to back to the just subject, I think in some situations, I could have been replaced due to one reason, and then another reason of not being, so team oriented and doing team stuff outside of it. But again, that for me, it's just like, it's business at the end of the
Hmm.
day for me. And I think, whatever decision was made, I didn't really, I just wanted the truth. I didn't want to hear rumors. I'm a business person. So
Hmm.
like, if you're going to be straight up honest with me and tell me, like, great, that's perfect, I'm going to focus then on what I need to focus on, which I did. Some people, when I was reading, when they first found out the news that I was being replaced, was, oh, why is he still playing? I'd be throwing, I'd be doing, this and that, knowing that I'm being replaced after this event. But for me, it was more of, why am I going to tarnish my name and feed into any, hearsay of why or reasons, and then feed into that? Like, oh, look, Lax is, playing like this. That's obviously why they wanted to do it. Oh, Lax isn't trying because of this, blah, 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 blah. But if anyone remembers Berlin, I was within the top 5 rated players at that event, knowing for an entire month that I was getting replaced, and still practiced for that entire month leading into Berlin, then went to Berlin, played my ass off because I still wanted to win 40 grand. Like, I wasn't going to let that, like, that's still an opportunity to make money. And, I wasn't just going to let that slip. And like, with, where some people, I feel, if they were in my shoes and in my situation, knowing that they're getting replaced, knowing that no matter what, you weren't going to be on a team. And I also probably lost out on a little bit of opportunities because I was at the major, why some teams were making changes. So I couldn't even get scrims in with teams. And those teams, made good changes to their rosters. But I felt like, had I was given an opportunity to actually get in on some tryouts, I'd have probably already been back in NAL and competing. Sorry for my dog. Kylo, come here. Hold on one second.
It's okay.
I'm just gonna grab him. Hey, knock it off. Sorry.
It's okay.
We can just edit out that segment right there.
No, we leave it in. We leave it. It's personality, it's character.
Okay.
It's character.
But no, so I didn't want to feed into, all the speculations as to why I was being replaced. I just wanted to focus up and try to win the event. And, outside of that, like I said, I placed top 5 rated player in the event. And that's where I'm saying, like, my work ethic speaks for itself, because I had my back against the wall. I was, as some people would say, in the shit. But I don't let that affect me, because, again, this is business to me. This isn't about friendships. This isn't about, someone's feelings. Like, this is about my work and what I want my work to give back to me. So, like I said, that's as much as, like, I'm really going to go into it. Yeah. I'm not going to go crazy in depth. I don't have any hate towards OXG, you guys. Like I said, it is what it is. It's business at the end of the day, whether I agree with it or not. Whatever works for them works for them. I'm not here to, rip on anyone or say, any negative shit. I don't really care. It is what it is. It's all set and done. I just have to focus now on my career.
Yeah, I see. I actually like that, because I think you've taken a very mature approach to everything. As someone who's, on the wrong side of 25 myself, I'll say this, I'm not far off 30 at all. One thing that I've noticed in my normal career is that when you do transition through jobs or from workplace to workplace, they do look at how you behaved in your previous work spot place. That's why they do background checks. That's why people have references. And I think the way that you conducted yourself will be have a big boon to you whenever a team does want you, because they'll say, well, how did he behave in that situation when you was going to be replaced? And I think it will. Go ahead.
Well, continue on with what you were saying.
I think it will stand to you whenever you do, start trialing with teams again ahead of 2023 schedule.
Yeah, it's just, I didn't want to paint the picture that people were trying to paint and give them a reason as to why, like, oh, I totally understand it. That makes perfect sense. Like, I didn't want to feed anyone's already made up bullshit that they could already try to make up. I was going to continue being the player that I was from day one, and ended the player that I was at that event. That isn't going to change because of a situation. Because, again, it's business to me. Like, fuck the friendships. Friendships are great and all, but, like, it is business. Like, I am here to compete. I'm here to win. I'm here to play my ass off, and I expect that from my 4 other teammates.
So then, after you finished with OXG, you were kind of looking for a team to go to, and you decided to step into coaching. So it was an interesting one. It was one I actually really looked forward to seeing, was how you went over. Went to APAC. You worked a little bit with Elevate again. How did that opportunity come to be? Did you reach out to them and say, hey, I'm not playing this stage, I'd love to help you out? Or did someone from them come to you and say...
So obviously, when I was at the event, the post went out that
Mhm,
CGG made saying that I was being replaced, this, that, and there was obviously already speculations on Twitter. But then CGG kind of like put the nail in the coffin.
mhm,
And Justin was actually at the event, which is the CEO of
mhm.
Elevate, and we had interactions back and forth throughout Twitter. But like that was the first time actually meeting in person. And Justin is a super cool dude and a very nice guy. Excuse me,
Mhm.
he was kind of like taking care of me, like he knew my situation obviously, and he was really trying to make me feel better at the event, which was like kind of crazy to me because
Mhm.
you're the CEO, you don't really have a lot of interactions with CEOs too much in terms of orgs. But he was like always asking like, can I run and grab you a donut? You want to go get food? You want
Mhm.
to grab pizza? Just stuff like that. Just just trying to make conversation, trying to make me feel better. um and it was nice. So we would talk after the event and like what I was doing, and we were just kind of chit chatting about content creation stuff and me joining him. And then like Elevate was actually searching for a coach, and I kind of just threw it in there jokingly.
Mhm.
I was like, I could coach them in the meantime, just to like do something to pass time until roster windows open up. And then that thing kind of just started from there. And then I was coaching APAC, which
Yeah.
that was an interesting experience, I'll say that.
So being a coach at the other side of the coin, instead of being down in the trenches playing the games, you're responsible for the development of individual players and their talents. And we could talk all day about what you learned as a coach from doing that, but I want to know more so what you think you learned as a player from coaching those guys at Elevate, working in a different region, that has a completely different play style. Like, do you think that time as a coach is going to be a massive benefit for you whenever you do get your next team in 2023?
Um, if I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't think it taught me a whole lot because, again, when I joined the Elevate roster, they were already having success,
Hmm.
and I wanted to make it very clear with me joining in that short time that I was there that I wasn't there in that beginning to necessarily be on top of like people and trying to like change their fundamentals or their play necessarily. Like I was also there learning,
Hmm.
and being 7.5 years of NA and then transitioning to APAC and trying to tell them like what I think is right and wrong, like doesn't really correlate well with the region's play style compared to
Hmm.
NA's. So it was more of just a learning experience for me. I can't say that I did anything crazy for them that made them do well or do bad. Like truthfully, I didn't do a lot of what might some people might think I did or I didn't. Like that is the truth. Like I
Hmm.
was, I gave feedback. I, tried to change mindsets about, how they approach the game, but I didn't really do anything crazy extensive that, really made this a complete giant learning experience outside of just already being in a new region and seeing how teams played and scrimmed and practiced. And it just really showed me that, you know,
Hmm.
in my personal opinion, this isn't towards Elevate, just like the quality of scrims, the schedules and everything. I can understand why APAC has struggled for as long as they have because the quality that is provided in APAC just is not what you would get probably in EU or NA or Brazil. And like it sucks to see that like firsthand. Like from an outside perspective, like you can, make assumptions, but when you're actually there and watching gameplay and watching scrims, like you truly see how underdeveloped the scene is over there.
Hmm. And the
Granted, they are making improvements
yeah,
with obviously rosters, but like you do really see outside of the T1 like how underdeveloped the scene is.
and it's scary in a way because there is a lot of talent in APAC. Like, you worked with Onigiri, he's phenomenal. You look at the guys that
Yeah, he's
were,
a phenomenal
yeah,
player.
you look at some of the guys in Damwon, like Woogie Man at one point was winning rounds all by himself when he was in
Mhm.
1v4s. Like, there's so much talent in that region, and I think maybe with the new structure, we might actually see that region finally develop to live up to the potential that it has, which, as we all agree, if every single region is pulling and, punching at the same level, it's good for everybody. It's makes these events
100%.
better. So I want to talk about the other side of Laxing now. So recently you stepped on the other side of the camera. So you took part in NA close quals as one of the desk analysts, where first off I want to give you your congrats for that. I thought that you did a phenomenal
Appreciate
job.
it.
Um,
Thank you.
I do feel bad for the likes of me when you do it because you obviously bring a level of dress sense and drip that I just can't match. You're one of the best
Nah.
dressed people inside of the scene. But how did that opportunity come up again? Because I was talking to in Jönköping in Berlin. I was talking to obviously Trey. You Trey Phoebus. You were probably
Yep.
speaking with, and we got
Trey's a very close friend. Trey's a great guy. I don't want to reveal any sources of how I got the job,
yeah.
but it's definitely some great people over at Ubisoft that are really looking out for me. And if they watch this, like, thank you. It means the world to me to give me that opportunity and to just help me throughout the process of everything that's been going on. So there's definitely some great people over there at Ubisoft that really have my back.
Yeah, well, what can I say? Whenever I was speaking to Trey, like, he was saying you were somebody he would love to see on a desk, and I think you lived up to the hype. But how did you find that? Because it is obviously very different. We spoke a little bit before, and you said your worry was that it was going to be all about the numbers, all about the stats. But in reality, you didn't find it to be that way.
Yeah, so how I got it, I messaged some people, put in a request, just shot in the dark, see what they'd say. And, they got back to me and said they would love that. And that happened. So then I secured it. But then going into it, I truthfully didn't know what to expect. So my girlfriend is also on the esports side of things. She does casting, analyst, hosting. And so I always got an idea of how to work. I mean, outside of, even seeing, casters in Siege, analysts in Siege, but like living with someone and being with someone that actually does it, like, you get the more in-depth side of things. And I had a newfound appreciation for the work all of you do on this side of things. I always, like, from a player standpoint, like, I thought it was kind of easy, just talking and, making these points or, casting the rounds and all that. And to, like, then hear my girlfriend do it and see it firsthand, it's a lot of work. So like I said, I have a newfound appreciation for what you guys do, and you guys are great at what you do. And, like, I'm envious of that. So when I was then now doing it, I didn't really know what to expect. I was kind of like, this is brand new for me. Like, I am good at talking. Like, that's probably like one of my better traits about me, is like, I am good at talking. But in terms of, making the points, making it sound right, making it sound good, having people like, because you can talk, but it matters if people want to listen, right? So, I was kind of like in my head a little bit, new experience. And as you were saying, I thought being an analyst was this: you had to crunch numbers, you had to know the percentages, you needed to know win rates. And sure, that does play, some percentage of that job title. But for me, I like breaking down plays. I like getting in the minds of, like, what I think the team was trying to do and how they executed it, or reading the round and how could they have executed it and what I would have liked to see. Like, that's stuff that I like to do. And, like, knowing that then I was able to do that, it made me just feel so much better being on the desk, and made me feel like I really knew what I was talking about, and I could really, let the audience know how that round went and how it was broken down, and just give them the idea of what was in my head, and, like, really represent it, by explaining everything.
And did you speak to anybody from the broadcast team before you went on? Like, did you talk to any of the NA guys, EU guys for tips?
So when we had a rehearsal on Friday just to, like, kind of touch up, get an idea of what we are going to do. And then we all probably sat in Discord, and I was just asking questions, even once we started it, I was always asking for feedback afterwards. And, like, one of my biggest problems, which I'm sure, this is what every analyst or host goes through, is, like, looking at the fucking camera. And just, like, staring at it, and, like, also trying to find ways so you aren't, like, staring at, like, you need help, but, like, looking away, looking back at it. And then when you're talking, like, I would look at the person on vMix or whatever it was. I was looking at them while they're talking, but I should have been looking at the camera. And it was those little things that after each segment, I was like, how can I fix this? Or what do you do? And, they were all super great and very helpful. And then even the talent outside of the SI quals were messaging me and giving me feedback, which is, very heartwarming to me that, they were so open arms and, trying to give me feedback, and also giving me great feedback, and, saying how well I was doing. And by the end of it all, like, I just felt really good. And I also, like, I want more gigs to, like, do stuff like this on, but I don't want that to take away from me playing. Like, I still want to play, but I definitely enjoyed doing the analyst's desk.
No, well, there's 100%, I think, a spot for you whenever you do decide to stop playing on the desk, because I really enjoyed it. You know, when I saw you on the list, I was like, this is going to be fun, because I always love when professional players come on as an analyst, but it is really good when it's a professional player who actually knows how to convey themselves on camera. They've got a good presence about them, because as some people will find out when you're on an analyst desk, you can make fantastic points, but if you're not engaging, sometimes they don't come across. You spoke about
that.
you spoke about
Well,
looking,
no, sorry.
I was gonna say, you spoke about looking at the camera. My first ever interview that I did for this kind of show was a year ago with Parker, and I remember watching it back, and the difference in how he interacted with the camera and how I did was completely different. Like you, I was staring at you instead of looking at the camera.
Just, it's just so like your eyes like just naturally like you want to look at the person talking to you. Like I think proper etiquette in general when whether it's a face-to-face conversation is you are looking at the person when they're talking to you. So every time Cookies or Brim was talking, I was just, instead of looking away at my camera, then I was staring at them. But it was funny because I'd also watch back in the broadcast. At moments, I'd be too fixated on the camera, and then I would see some people in chat like blink twice if you need help, because I would just be dead staring at the camera. And then I was asking my girlfriend for tips, and like she gave me a really good tip of where's the person that's talking on the camera, look off to the left. If they're to your left on the camera, like where the positioning is, you can look off to the left as if you're, on talent looking at them, or look to the right, or, she was giving me tips. And then, like I said, as every segment kept going throughout those 2 days, it just kept getting better and better.
Yeah, the one thing that I found when I worked in the studio in Paris, it is so much easier in studio, because when you're talking to the person, you actually would, like I would do here, you would turn and talk to them and make eye contact. But at the same time, when you're making a point to the audience, then you can look at the camera, because this is the point that I want to make to you guys. So honestly, I think you did a great job. I can't wait to see more of you on desk whenever you do decide to hang up the normally you say hang up the boots, hang up the gloves,
hang up the mouse, hang up the mouse, hang up the mouse pad, all that stuff.
But this is where I want to talk about SI. So obviously you got to be on the desk for SSG, who had what I would call, they showed the best and the worst of SSG last weekend. You saw what they can do when they're firing on all cylinders, and you saw what can happen whenever they're at 50% and somebody else is at 100. And they were the first team to ever 7-0 TSM, the first time it's ever kind of happened in that space. Do you think winning a close qualifier like that, especially with the team that they have, is going to give them a massive boost going into SI? Like, do you think SSG have the pieces in place to potentially win this SI, or do you still think that they need a little bit more time?
I think them just qualifying and knowing that they had the odds against them the entire time is already a boost in general. I don't think them beating TSM necessarily was like the, the stamp that, made them more confident. They play TSM, I don't know how many times throughout the regular season. 2 times, but I don't think them, like I said, beating TSM necessarily made them feel a certain way. I think them just qualifying is what really put the fire, that has the fire in them right now. But I don't think that's going to necessarily, mean anything crazy, because I know they know what Invite's like, and they're going to, do the prep. I don't think they're just going to let those games and qualifying, be the tell-all of their story. Like, they're going to want to obviously win it. Bosco then being Fultz, Rampy, Bosco being a 3-time champion, Fultz and the rest being 2-time champion. I think they're, still going to focus hard in what they need to do in order to be great, because like you said we did see, sloppy SSG versus on point SSG. And obviously you can't have those starts at Invite being sloppy. Like, you want to be coming out the gate hot and firing on all cylinders. So I think that they're obviously very excited and should be excited and proud that they qualified for Invite. But now, now this is where it really starts. Now the grind really starts, and, everything that you do and the decisions you make are more important than what was happening in the SI quals.
And are there any teams that you think people should be looking at going into SI as serious contenders? Because we've had a year where we've had different teams win every single major, different regions won events.
Well, so since I'm not on the desk and I don't have to give a real who I want, I'm gonna be completely honest and say I'm a sore fucking loser. So the fact that I'm not there I'm gonna be straight. I don't give a shit who wins. It could be an NA team, it could be an EU team, it could be a LATAM team, it could be an APAC team. I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's some people could be like, oh, what a sore loser. And yeah, I am a sore loser. Even when I'm at the event, when I'm at Invite, every time I lose, I don't give a fuck who wins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just like, yeah, great. Congratulations, world champion. Woo! Next year, let's focus up. So yeah, truthfully, I don't really have anyone in terms of who I think to watch out for. I am curious to see how OXG is going to do with their new variation with Sweater, to see how they do internationally, because they haven't played international yet. Sweater hasn't had that experience against international teams. So I am curious to see how that goes. And that's not me saying, I hope anything bad happens, because like I said, I don't have any hate or anything towards the guys, but I am genuinely curious just to see how OXG does, because I just want to see, obviously, when you saw the regular NAL stage, like they had one of the worst stages and probably, one of the histories of OXG making roster changes, because typically when we even made roster changes back then, we always still maintained a top 4 position or got first place or second place, like whatever it was. And this was the first time where they struggled. So now I'm curious to where, with given the time, obviously, and fixing issues and doing what they need to do to get better, I'm curious to see how the international play is.
Yeah, and I think another benefit maybe for you as well is with SI coming up, sometimes a lot of teams decide to make changes after SI. That's when spots open up, and we're in a world now where every single region is blessed with entry players who are incredibly gifted mechanically. But I think the void that a lot of teams will be looking to fill are those other roles on a team, the roles that you can't just step into as an 18-year-old. And I think there may be some teams that will be looking for somebody just like you. So here's where I post the question. You have a home, you have, obviously your lovely partner, and you've got pets. If the right EU team or right LATAM team came and said, Laxing, we have a hole, we think you can fill it perfectly, would you be willing to make a move to a different region?
If you're asking me this on the spot right now, truthfully, probably not. I do enjoy staying in North America. Not that I have anything against EU or LATAM or anything like that, but I do enjoy staying where I, live, which is in America. Obviously, things could change. Nothing is set in stone. But for right now, I couldn't see myself moving to EU or LATAM or APAC or anything like that. Like, I do enjoy being here, but that's not to say that's not something that could be entertained in the future. But to touch up on your point with like my sort of play style, like I would say someone that plays my play style, I'm probably one of the most flexible. I put in my tweet in my LFT just recently, that I'll play any role that a team needs. And some people don't know in my career, obviously people know me for flank, watch, and lurking, but I have played every single role throughout my career. Obviously, notoriously has been flank watch and, this lurk role, but I have played every single role, and I am confident that I can play any single role at the highest level. And, I would only need a couple months to like get to that point, or even a month. So I think I bring tons of value. Well, I don't think. I know for a fucking fact I bring tons of value and experience to any team, whether it's a top team or a low team. I just know my worth, and I know the value that I have that, could be represented extremely well on any of these teams. So I'm just curious to see what happens after SI. Again, I do plan to get back into competitive at some point. I have been itching. It's nice to, take that break after 7.5 years of nonstop competing. It is a nice break, but I am itching to get back onto the grind and to make something happen.
Well, I'll say it for myself. I can't speak for everyone, but I really want to see you back playing in stage 1. You're always someone that I enjoyed watching. So as we come to the end, I want to take a step away from esports in general now and kind of get to know you a little bit better. So we spoke already. You've got a lovely dog. You've got your partner, you've got your home. What do you do? So obviously you see Siege as a business, and that's the way you treat it. So with that, you're going to have hobbies and things you like to do on the outside. So when you're not playing, when you're not competing, what do you like to get up to?
Obviously COVID ruined a lot of everyone's activities outside. I've kind of been a hermit since since COVID happened. But as of recently, I've been picking back up the gym. I used to work out very aggressively throughout my gaming career, and then had some health issues, and then that set me back. And then I would start up again, and then something else would happen, tournaments would happen, and then I would be so tired I'd stop working out. Then COVID is the one that really hit me. I'm gonna be honest when I say this is, with my body, my metabolism, I never knew that I could develop tits. And COVID kind of showed me that I can in fact have titties. So for quite a while now, I've been fasting to eat like one meal, and just kind of like not put on as much weight as I was putting on, and like cutting the gut. But again, as of this past 3 weeks, I've been back on the gym grind. I've been working out 6 days out of the week. And it feels really good. So like that's one hobby right now is working out. Obviously, my dog that I've now had for a year and a month, just a lot of training with him, just a lot of fun stuff. It's different when you have your own dog versus a family dog. Having that bond is just such a different experience. And I love my little boy. So like that's an outside experience that I've been, or hobby now, is training him and doing stuff with him. And then not a whole lot. I mean, I guess you could say the cooking, but that's just kind of like an everyday necessity. I need to eat, I need to live. I could go the route of, ordering food, but I do enjoy the food that I cook and the quality of food that I make. So that's just another thing outside of it. So nothing too crazy. I did like to go out shopping and going out to restaurants a lot, but even still with COVID, I try, I don't do it as much. I do try to do it every now and then, but it definitely wasn't as much post-COVID. I mean, pre-COVID, I was going out to restaurants and going shopping and doing that stuff. Like those were like really big hobbies of mine now that I just don't do. So now it's just content creation, training my dog, hanging out with my girlfriend, doing stuff, getting our house situated, and brand new house, getting it all furnished and making everything look really nice. That's more so my girlfriend, me just kind of being there like, yeah, that looks good, I like that. That's a great pick. And she does it, she has a master's degree in interior design. So my say on things probably isn't the right thing to like what actually would look good aesthetically, but no, it's been a fun process. That's all been new for me. And then I mean, everything else outside of it has kind of just been a hobby, I guess.
Yeah. It's a funny one because I think we're in a world now where people are starting to realize too that your physical and mental well-being has a massive impact on your ability to compete in gaming. That's why maybe a lot of players burned out in their early 20s, whereas now we're seeing people like you competing at a high level at the last major event you played at. Crine's obviously doing fantastically in EU. And I think it's a thing, you sleep properly, eat properly, you stay hydrated, you're going to compete a lot better than you would no matter what level you game at.
Yeah.
But I think
100%.
Yeah, I think you're right. Keeping yourself busy, keeping active is something that a lot of people lost out on in COVID. Funny, I got into casting because of COVID, because all of my outside stuff got cut, and I fell in love with that. I'm on my own journey like you. My body changed in ways that I didn't like over COVID.
I couldn't believe it.
It's funny, it's a lot easier to find it than it is to lose it. That's the truth. But no, I've really enjoyed this talk with you. I'm not going to lie. I think first off, as I said, if any teams are watching this, make sure to give this man a call, because I think he can be a massive impact.
I'm free. Yeah. I am free. Like there's no contracts that need to be looked over, any buyouts. Like I'm free.
And to you and to your lovely girlfriend and your dog, I hope you have lots of years of happiness and health in your new home as well. I know I
appreciate that.
It's a big thing. And whatever comes next, Laxing, I wish you nothing but success.
I appreciate that. That means that truly does mean a lot. And obviously, with how things have gone, it looked kind of grim for a little bit, but I don't know. It's everything happens for a reason. I'm confident that things will turn out however they are. Whether I pursue the desk for a future or content creation or something like that. Like I'm confident in whatever happens and whatever decisions I make in my life. I'm gonna stick by it and make the best of it.
And anything you want to say to anyone who doubts your ability to come back in and compete?
Since this is your show, I'll be I'll be a little more mature. I won't say anything crazy, but those people can go fuck themselves.
I love it. I love it. That's the exact sort of answer that I wanted. Well, guys, I'm just to say thank you everyone at home for watching. If you haven't already, please give Laxing a follow on all of his socials, and that'll be your best way to keep up to date with everything going on in his world. If you've enjoyed the podcast, make sure to give the channel a like and subscribe as well. But Laxing, you're an absolute gent. It's been a pleasure having you on, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
I appreciate it. I just want to say one more thing. This is definitely one like the better shows that I've been on in terms of like questions and like getting to know the person and just like the overall conversation. So you do a great job interviewing and like setting this up, because I've definitely been on some podcasts, or not podcasts, just like, you know, the person's show or whatever it was. And it's pretty fucking boring. So I appreciate you making this far more enjoyable than maybe it's the accent too. Maybe it's a little more attractive, so I'm a little more engaged, but it's definitely better for sure.
Look,
I enjoy it.
For me, the guest is the star of the show. That's the way it's always going to be, and I want the community to get to know you better.
Well, I appreciate that, and thank you for having me on.
Take care.